Well, welcome everyone to our Sight Reading Builder webinar. We're going to take a deep dive into SmartMusic and our new tool, Sight Reading Builder. So glad you guys could make it tonight. Hopefully this will be really helpful for everyone, and we'll get to talk about how to use this new tool both in class and at home, some of the customization options you can use, and how it all works so that you guys can get started. A little bit about me. I heard once that if you're giving a presentation and you spend more than 10 seconds on your bio page, then something's gone terribly wrong. I think that the short version is I lead the content and education team here at Make Music. I love my job. I'm all about connecting educators with technology, and I'm a trombone player. Mentioned that I'm on the Make Music education team. What we do is share and communicate with you guys as customers, as teachers, as SmartMusic users, and bring that information back to Make Music, and vice versa. Bring information from Make Music out to you guys. Sometimes that takes the form of a webinar like this one, and sometimes it works in a clinic at a music educator convention. Sometimes it's a blog post, all of that kind of stuff. Everything that we want to talk to teachers about is something that the education team participates in. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so we will jump right in. We're going to talk about all things sight reading and how to use the Sight Reading Builder to kind of cover all of the different exercises you might want to build for your students. So one of the huge advantages of this new tool is that you can build unlimited sight reading exercises on demand. I think that's always the hardest part about teaching sight reading is where are you going to get the next piece of source material? What on earth are you going to have kids play next that matches in terms of the concepts you're teaching? And luckily with this tool, that becomes a non-issue. All you have to do is click the icon and another exercise will be generated using all of the parameters that you've set. We'll talk about how to use SmartMusic's predefined levels. These are the same levels that longtime SmartMusic users are familiar with from the sight reading exercises that have been part of the library for a long time, both in classic and new. We'll talk about how to customize those levels to make sure that you're teaching exactly the things that you want to be teaching. The customization options get pretty intense. I think it's one of the highlights of the tool. So we're just going to spend a lot of time there and make sure that you know exactly how to customize things to your heart's content. We'll talk about how to save your outlines so that you can come back to that content again. Maybe you customized it one way and it had too many dotted rhythms, so you want to go tweak it. But everything else was great, and the time you spent there isn't wasted. So you can save those and come back to them. You can even upload one from a friend and share them that way. So if you wanted to customize things the same way as another teacher, you could. We'll talk about downloading and printing exercises. So if the sight reading algorithm gets it exactly right and gives you the exercise that you're going to want to use again, you can print it by exporting it and opening it in a notation program. I'll show you how to do that. We'll talk about some great in-class sight reading activities that use the Sight Reading Builder. We'll talk about how to assign these exercises to students so that you can make sure that students are practicing this stuff at home. We'll talk about how to build a whole unit of these exercises so that you can scaffold kids appropriately through different pieces of curriculum. And we'll talk about how to make sight reading part of your program's culture. I think that's all kind of bound up in how you merge the in-class activities with the assignments and the sight reading that kids are doing in their home practice. Because when kids are doing sight reading and actively working on that skill, both in class and at home, it becomes normal. And that goes a long way towards making sure that your students are making progress. So without further ado, we'll talk about how to use the Sight Reading Builder. We're actually not going to spend a ton of time on slides. I'm going to drag a tab over here, and we're actually going to explore most of this in SmartMusic itself so that you can kind of see it in action. So we'll start with some first steps. You can see here we've got the SmartMusic homepage up. I have some assignments I haven't graded. That's obviously my fault. You can see old assignment templates. We're going to talk about how to build these from the Sight Reading Builder a little later. To get to the Sight Reading Builder, I'm going to go up to the navigation icon, our wonderful grid in the upper right that takes us to all of the places in SmartMusic we'd like to go. And I'm going to come down here and click on SR Builder with the little eyeball. It's going to pull up the Sight Reading Builder for me, and it's immediately going to ask me right off the bat what instruments are going to be doing this exercise. And you can build a custom ensemble. If we really want to have a particular particular set of instruments. Maybe this is a chamber music group or a sectional or something like that. But you can also choose one of our predefined ensembles. These are all the templates you'd expect, everything from beginning band to jazz combo, string orchestra. Got a lot of choices in here. And you can also pick a solo instrument. And to keep things nice and big on the screen, for now, I'll choose a solo instrument. I mentioned earlier I'm a trombone player, so I'll pick a trombone. Once I've picked the instrument, this is all editable at any time. I can go back to this step. I can go back steps whenever I need to. I'll pick a tempo for the exercise. And so this is the first step of the customization. Happens right away. So if we really were focusing on a specific tempo, I can enter that, right? I can say I want everything to have a tempo marking of 100, or I can leave a broader range, right? And say that playing this at the right tempo is part of the challenge, and so we need to have a wider range. These tempo markings will appear, but we can also add the more traditional Italian options as well, and it'll include these. This is also a great way to test kids on that theory knowledge, making sure that they're getting familiar with these musical terms. And when I click apply, then it'll ask me, what's the duration of this exercise? And so I can choose that in terms of beats or seconds, but I think most common, we'll choose bars. I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. We'll leave this at 6 to 8 measures. And so now every exercise I build in the Sight Reading Builder using kind of the setup will have that many measures in it. So this is all customizable right from the start. Click apply, and then it'll ask me about those difficulty levels. Again, these are the difficulty levels in this drop-down here that longtime SmartMusic users will be familiar with from the SmartMusic sight reading exercises that have been part of the library for a long time. So if you were working on level 4 with your students before, level 4 here will take you to those parameters. It won't take you to those specific exercises because we're building brand new exercises. Sight Reading Builder is doing all of that from scratch. So we'll start with something fairly easy. Let's start with level 2. For our trombone player here, you can see this is really simple. Right, and it generated an exercise from scratch. So we have rests and notes. It's only level 2, so we're still providing courtesy accidentals. And if I want something else, just click the gear icon. And so you can see level 2 also includes eighth notes. We just didn't get any in the first exercise. And every time I click generate a new score, I'm going to get a new exercise to show students. It'll always be something different. These are all being generated in real time because no one has a staff composer ready to go to build sight reading exercises all the time. So this is a great example. I can change the level, right? If I wanted to make things quite a bit more complex, I could go down to level 7. All of a sudden, things don't look quite so much fun. We've got time signature changes, a lot of accidentals. At least it's kind of slow though. Give everyone a chance. And again, generating a new score will keep generating. You can see already in some of the predefined levels which concepts are being emphasized. So you'll notice like a lot more 16th notes. So when we get to level 7, but we're clearly also talking about articulations, right? Getting the difference here between the slurred line and the accents. But those tempos are still being defined by what I set up originally. So we're gonna go back to level 2 and keep it nice and easy. And we're going to talk about how to start customizing everything here. So there are a whole bunch of ways you can customize these exercises, and we'll go over all the options. You can talk about time signatures, keys, instrument ranges, intervals, rhythms, kind of all of the different options. And so as we come back here to level 2, we'll start over here with time signature. And so I picked a predefined level as a starting place, right? If you wanted to start somewhere else, you could. Level 2 is a great example because it starts out pretty simple, right? And so we'll be able to kind of see all the options change pretty immediately as we generate some exercises. The time signatures, again, is level 2. It's pretty simple. But we can select any of these. So if I were to say take out 2/4 but add 9/8, this one isn't in 9/8, so I'll generate it a few times and then it'll generate me something in 9/8. You'll notice that the 9/8 exercise looks pretty easy because I've added this one random compound time signature to all of the other level 2 parameters, which involve pretty simple rhythms, pretty simple keys. So you might get some kind of unusual results if you try to throw in one big loop in the middle there with all of the other kind of standardized things. So it's worth taking the time to go through and make sure that everything's kind of looking the way you want. Maybe try generating a few exercises just to make sure that you don't run into any of these kind of unusual guys where it thinks that we can only put dotted half notes in. Right? Dotted quarter notes in this case aren't included in level 2 necessarily. So, which is why every time we've put in the dotted half note in the 9/8 bar, we kind of are stuck with rest. The algorithm wasn't quite sure what to do with that space. And when I get rid of it, we go right back to generating exercises only in 3/4 and 4/4. Put in custom time signatures. So this is a great way to really emphasize a piece of curriculum like understanding the difference between simple time and compound time. Because, right, if I wanted to have a 7/4 option, I could put that in and enable it, and then I'll generate until I get a 7/4 option. And so keeping the quarter note consistent, regardless of what which option, how many beats per measure we've selected, that's something I can add. So like maybe that's the exercise. So we put in 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 7/4, but we keep everything else really simple, right? To get our students used to the fact that it doesn't matter how many beats from the measure, we're going to keep this quarter note really consistent and have a steady pulse at the quarter note no matter what. And so those are all great options. The customization can go a long way for making sure that the curriculum is doing exactly, the exercises are doing exactly what you need them to do for the curriculum. Kind of go back here to the standard level 2. You can see we can have it only use one time signature, or we can have the time signature change in the middle of the measure. We can have it set up subdivisions. All of these options are available if you really wanted to get advanced with the time signature option. And so some of these will start to be enabled if we were to move away from level 2 and into the more complex difficulties. Another option is to mess with key signature. So you can see that in this case, level 2, again, real simple. We're keeping our trombone players in B flat. We're displaying reminder accidentals. And we only have one key signature per exercise. In this case, so we can stop displaying the reminder accidentals. And you can see our B flat doesn't get that courtesy accidental. And let's add a bunch of keys, right? Let's say that this student wants to keep, that we want to keep most of the stuff simple like level 2, but we want to add more key signatures so that the student feels comfortable. We could also say we're keeping the rhythm simple to focus on key signatures and get rid of all of the keys that are easy for trombone players and put in the keys that are much more difficult for trombone players, right? And force the student to think. And then, again, disable the reminder accidentals so that students are forced to think about this in the right key signature. You can also change the key signature on them. Say if we're changing it every single measure, it's going to get a little crazy with some of these choices. But if our options are only, you say F and B flat, and then we're providing a change every 4 measures and a longer exercise, obviously that'll make this look a little bit more reasonable. You can also include minor modes. So here I'll go back to a simple key here. And if I add harmonic minor, might have to generate it a couple times before we see an accidental. We'll add some keys here so it makes it easier for it. Keep generating things. It really wants us to be in major. So you can see that some of these things maybe don't have sevenths either. And if they don't have sevenths in harmonic, right, they're not going to get an accidental. So we're going to have options here to also include minor. In addition to key, we can mess with rhythm. And so this is one of the most, I think, useful parts of the customization for the exercise. So we can include rhythmic patterns that are predefined, or we can build our own new one. And so you can see based on each level, which rhythmic patterns are options. So if we're in level 2, we're only going to be allowed to play whole notes, half rests, quarter rests, dotted halves, 8th notes, 1 at a time, and 8th notes 2 at a time. But if we were to move to level 3, these other patterns are going to come up. Stuff with syncopation, stuff with 4 8th notes in a row, some dotted notes. Until by the time we get all the way down to something really crazy, right in level 10, we're going to be working with quintuplets and septuplets, all of the craziness you'd expect for somebody at that level. But if I wanted to add something, I could do that. So if I really want this syncopation in level 2, even though it's really only supposed to be in level 3, I can add that. As I generate an exercise, I'll get to see that. I'll be able to see that this rhythmic pattern was added, even though it wasn't necessarily part of the level because I enabled it. I can also build a custom pattern. So if I build a custom pattern here, we'll use the same example. All right, I'll add an eighth note, quarter note, and an eighth note here. I'll save the pattern. And now it's here in this custom pattern. And as I generate, we'll still see the custom pattern. In this case, again, I chose this example down here from level 3, but you can put in any rhythm you want. So let's go over how to do that again. So if I create a new pattern, I can select which beats I want things to start on. I can say how often do I want it to appear in an exercise. And I can create the custom pattern and say that I want it to apply in certain levels and not others, which is another really useful customization feature as you really dig in. You can say have the pattern only applied to non-percussion. I can make it a compound thing or simple thing. When I add a new note, I'll click the little blue plus. I'll choose the rhythm. Little blue plus. Choose the rhythm. Okay, we'll make this one even more complex. We'll add a second quarter note. I will make it look more like this. We'll add one more so that it always fills the bar. And we'll save this guy. Right? And as we generate stuff, I'll get rid of some of these other rhythms. We'll start to see more of that syncopation happen over and over again. So rhythms are a great option for building the exact thing that you want. We also talked a little bit about instrument ranges. And so we can set the range for the included instrument. Again, since this is level 2, we've left trombone players nice and comfortable, but we can change that. And we can change that based on MIDI value. So if we really wanted to have the low end come up, we could do that. If we wanted to have the low end come down, we can drag it down. Right? We can make this look more like something that maybe a high school trombone player would be comfortable with, as opposed to somebody that is probably doing a level 2 assignment. We can decide if we want double sharps and double flats in the exercise or not, which is another option. And if we're just tinkering with this and we weren't happy with any of the settings, we can always reset to the default. And as we'll see in a second, when we build an ensemble template, this option will be there for every instrument. So if you know, for example, that your clarinets are not as strong as your flutes, you can expand the range for the flutes in the customization without necessarily expanding the range for the clarinets. There's a great way to do something like teach that custom rhythm while simultaneously not taxing a particular section if they don't necessarily have the range. And also decide in this section here how many repeated pitches we want, how often we want accidentals, and then a really useful tool, especially if we're going to put this up projected in class, one click to make it a rhythm-only exercise. And when this is enabled, everything that shows up is just going to be rhythmic. Now we can have all the students clap along with the rhythm as it's generated instead of needing to play all the pitches if they're a transposing instrument. And also set up some of those pitch rules based on intervals. So if we want the melodic contour to stay pretty simple, we can get rid of things like fourths and thirds. And now we've reduced the exercise so that it's only stepwise motion. Again, these things will continue to kind of scale up as you choose different options for predefined levels. Those are just starting places. And then we can also choose certain intervals that are always followed by a step. I know this is a big one for vocalists, right? Making sure that any leaps are always followed by steps. It also makes it easier for kind of everybody, right? If it provides that anchor point. Choose how often we want intervals that are greater than, in this case, than a step to change, but we could say how often do we want something bigger than a fourth, only 2 in a row. And we can say that we always want to approach upper and lower ranges that we set before with small steps, right? So we're not asking kids to do these crazy chordal leaps all over their instruments. They're playing something that makes sense. In the last page, you saw that we can set up certain sharps and flats, but here we can set up which scale degrees are part of a given exercise. In this case, we've kept it pretty simple, but we could also set up more of a kind of post-tonal option if we wanted to add a whole bunch of different scale degrees that are pluses or minuses. So we can select everything. Now we're going to get a whole bunch of craziness, even though it's level 2. Because we've said that within this pretty simple key, we'd like all of these wild alterations. Also got some rhythmic options. So we can do things like avoid 2 consecutive rests. We can avoid combining triplets and 16th notes. And I know that can work both directions, right? Sometimes that's exactly what we want, is to combine triplets and 16th notes or triplets and 8th notes, so that students can learn the difference and really be clear about the rhythmic difference. But sometimes we want to focus the exercise one way or the other. And so that option will let you do that. You can also set up the ratio of ties. How often do we want ties? Do we want our ties to be only inside the measure versus go over the measure? And then finally, some instrument-specific options. Maybe we want our violas to practice treble clef, cellos to use tenor clef. Or one that I think is really useful, making sure that the clarinet breaks only crossed with stepwise interval can be really, really useful for getting clarinet players to sight read over the break back and forth in a way that isn't intimidating. There's always that kind of comfort level with that one, especially for younger players. And so making sure that that's something that is being applied automatically to the exercise can go a long way. Also start applying expression markings, articulations, slurs, dynamics. And this is another option where starting with something simple like level 2 can be expanded, right? We can make this more of an option. If we add staccato notes, roughly a third of the notes will be staccato. You can add accents, other articulations. And now students have something to pay attention to, right? This is a pretty simple exercise, all things considered, but now we're checking for this when we listen to the student's performance. We can also say that more than one articulation can happen on a note, just how we get guys like that. And we can start adding slurs. The articulation options are a great way to really access all of the potential of a sight reading exercise. And again, if we're not happy with this one, just generate another one. You can do the same thing with dynamics, right? Add a few of these. And you'll notice every time I change a setting, it automatically generates something new to make sure I'm seeing something with my current options. We can force one dynamic value for the whole exercise, or we can make them appear more and more frequently. At the higher I send the slider, the more often they'll appear. And we can add crescendos, diminuendos, all of that kind of stuff as we go. Oh, it's because the density is low. Right, you can add all of these kinds of expression markings as well. And then for truly advanced students, we can start adding more ornaments. As a trombone player, some of these are a little cruel. But if we really, really wanted to make our trombone players start trilling on every note, it's going to take a second to generate it with all trills. We could do that. Some of these are not physically possible on trombone. Finally, we can actually affect the melodic line. If we want more arbitrary jumps to make this more of a technical exercise, we can do that. If we want to change the number of scale fragments or how often arpeggios appear, we can do that as well. And we can always start the exercise on the root, or in this case, the fifth, right? So again, another great option for vocalists. We always want to start on 1, on do. We can always end on do as well. So we got a lot of choices here. so that you can see kind of how things change. If we get rid of all the scale fragments, we're going to see a lot more leaps. We're going to see more arpeggios. But as we bring the arpeggios down and the scales up, we're going to see more stepwise motion, more scale fragments. Got some rhythmic options. We can make things as more diverse or less diverse. And we have some ensemble options. So let's go back to the score setup and build an ensemble example here. So we'll go back to score setup up here in the tabs at the top. And we'll go back to that beginning tab with the instrument in it. We had the solo instrument built. And instead here, we'll build a custom ensemble. Or excuse me, we'll use one of the ensemble templates. So we'll build a string orchestra. That's something simple. And you can see level 2 for strings is a little different than level 2 for trombone because we're going to put those students in a key that's more comfortable for them. If we go back to level setup and we come back to the end here, we can use the same dynamics for all parts, or we can change it. Now that some students will be playing different dynamics, you won't be able to rely on friends in quite the same way. You can also create independent rhythmic lines so that not everyone is sight reading the same thing. All of these independent lines will be following all of the rules you set up in these other options as we customized. But obviously, if you want students to be able to see this on the board, probably best if we have using the same thing and only one independent rhythmic line. Lots of choices, lots of options for kind of how you choose to customize the exercise. And what we've seen is that teachers tend to have a lot of success when you kind of narrow it down to one thing. The more different options are happening, the more random the exercise is going to be. And so using these options to focus on one really clear thing, whether that's a rhythmic item, a dynamic or articulation item, kind of whatever you're focused on teaching, whatever the lesson plan calls for, build the exercise to solve for that. And then once that's built, students can go nuts. How do we get this to students? We have some options there too. And so the file thing, I can save this in my SmartMusic account. And it's going to give it a default name that I can edit. And so if I liked these exact settings that I have, right, this string orchestra setting with all those modifications I made, I can save that. And I can make sure that that's always ready to go for me. So I can come back here and not have to make all those adjustments again. I can edit it. I can assign it later, all that kind of stuff. So that's the cloud. I can save those parameters locally. So I can actually save a file on my computer and then upload it later by importing it from a file. And so these exercises can be shared, and you can always kind of hold on to that one set of customizations that you felt was really effective. One of the other cool things I can do is save this as a music XML file. And we're going to take a look at what that looks like. Again, so I can change this name. I'm going to leave it. I'll save this as a music XML. And then I'm actually going to open it in Finale. So I'll pull up Finale here. You can see that I had one of my trombone examples up earlier. And I'll import the music XML file I downloaded. And that exact string orchestra exercise that it generated is now here in a notation program. Right, I can choose to get rid of or edit this, right, if I wanted to. But now I have this thing I can print, I can distribute to students hard copy, and I can start building a book or a binder of sight reading exercises that are really good. Maybe it's because that one that was generated was really perfect, and I really want to use it over and over again. Maybe it's just so we can remind students how far they've come. So by printing these out, having access to them, we can practice them more than once. So these are all options you can have when you export that as a music XML for your students. You can also send it as an assignment. We'll talk about that in a minute here. So you can save, again, you can save your outline, share the customization, or build a library. Let's talk a little bit about how we might use this tool. So sight reading in class is a great way to reinforce that sight reading is something that happens every day. And making that part of daily practice and not just something that you're doing to get ready for a contest or competition or because it's the day after the concert makes it normal, and it reinforces the skill. So keeping something simple and consistent like a rhythm of the day can go a long way. And again, there's that option right in there to make anything rhythm only instantly. And by making it rhythm only right away, you can build an assignment kind of based on which rhythmic things you wanted to do that day. Students come in, they clap along, and you can hit generate a new exercise, and they have to clap along again. Again, keeping those rhythms that you wanted to focus on ready to go. So whatever the tricky rhythm is in the concert repertoire that you wanted to work on that day, build that custom rhythm, add it to the template, and then generate more exercises and have everyone clap along with the most difficult rhythm in the piece you're playing. And so that turns sight reading into something daily that you're doing on the board. You can also use that to establish a culture, right? You're setting this up in such a way where building sight reading exercises, working through sight reading exercises is something that just happens normally. It's nothing to be scared of. I think it's easy to kind of have students feel some anxiety over sight reading, right? That, ooh, this is hard and I'm on the spot with this. But when you do it every day, it's normal, it's easy. And it becomes a way to check in. You know, we just mentioned maybe we build the custom rhythm and we use that to get ready for the day's learning. This is the thing we're going to be working on in the concert repertoire. It works the other way around. Maybe the assignment was, we're going to, you know, over the last week, you were supposed to work on this passage of the concert repertoire. Let's check in on that rhythm by making you sight read it at the beginning of class. So once again here, and I can go to level setup and go to instrument range. And you can see here in an ensemble title, I can adjust the range of all the instruments individually. And then I make it a rhythm only exercise. I can expand things onto the board for students, make it full screen, and I can play it for them as we go here with the score. So we still have the aural reinforcement for students if that's what we need. We're not making them fly totally blind without using their ears if we don't want to. So we're going to talk about how to build an assignment with this. So we'll go over how to build a single assignment. And what happens there is we're actually going to save the assignment template. So you can assign it multiple times. Or we can build a unit and assign multiple templates to students all at once. And this is a great way to generate some formative assessment and make sure that students are really kind of progressing through the different templates by sending them all those assignments at the same time. So again, if we go to the File tab and the clipboard here at the end, we'll save our sight reading template by assigning it. Make sure it saves all our parameters. And then it'll take us to the SmartMusic assigner. Again, this is the simple process you go through for every assignment. It looks just like anything you would select from the SmartMusic library. So we've chosen the music. We've given it this default name. So we're going to get rid of some of this extraneous information that students don't really care about. Call it our sight reading orchestra score, or string orchestra sight reading score. We'll build a custom assignment. It's a sight reading assignment. We'll give students a full minute to look at it ahead of time. And give students instructions if we need. With this particular assignment, we're mostly concerned with notes and rhythms because we didn't add a whole bunch of those different dynamic or articulation options. Maybe we wanted to add an articulation or a dynamic option to this assessment grade and build a more complex rubric. This is more of a check-in, kind of a get the wheels turning, and maybe after winter break. So we'll make it a simple 10-point assignment worth the assessment grade. Since we've only are using the red notes and green notes for the grade, SmartMusic will grade it for us automatically. And we've saved it. So this template's ready to go, and we'll assign it to students. I'll choose my school here, my class. I'm okay with these due dates, right? I could send something to some students. So if I wanted perhaps to make an assignment with sight reading things that were specifically designed to supplement or reinforce what some students are working on or struggling with, I can do that and then assign it to only some students. And I'll assign it to my class. And what's great here is this is now in my assignment templates deck. So I could assign it again to a different class. And it'll take me right here, right? I think I assigned it to class 1 before. I can assign it to this is my second class, right? My second period class. The same way. I could assign it to the same class with a different due date as well. So if I wanted multiple shots at assigning this in such a way that students needed to show progress over time, I could do that. And I could put that into the rubric by editing it as well. Go back to the home screen here without assigning that. Another option is to build a unit. So we'll go up here and we'll go down to the unit. And when we build a unit, we might need to copy that template several times to get it in there more than once. So here you can see a sight reading unit that I built. And I've left our little copy indicators in here so you can see that what I did was I started with this sight reading score, a trombone only exercise that I built. And then I can edit it, right? Change the name, can change the rubric, change those kinds of things here with the pencil, and also just copy it. And when I copy it, it appears here in my assignment templates, and I can add that to the selection as well. So if I wanted to assign the same template multiple times, I could do that all at once, assign the unit, build it in the class. It all looks the same. You can see all the things I'm assigning here. So you have a lot of flexibility over how you assign something and kind of when you assign something, right? If you needed to have multiple attempts all due on the same day, you can build this unit. If you wanted attempts to be due on different days, we could simply assign the same template, but based on that same set of sight reading parameters more than once. I like the unit option a lot because it helps show student progress over time. You can say, it's also a way to incorporate slight changes in the difficulty level, right? If I were to open that sight reading builder outline and then maybe add a key signature, save it under a different name, add that to the unit, then I could have students progress through various sight reading exercises and options and be able to track their progress in my gradebook. So again, this is about building a culture. And so when students feel as though sight reading in class is normal, completing sight reading assignments at home is normal, that they're going to be less scary. And not all of these have to make their way into the gradebook for huge amounts of points, right? It can be a simple completion thing. Building a unit or assigning the same template multiple times is great because you can show progress over time. If you're assigning the same template more than once, then you're able to show how a student got better at this very specific skill, right? Maybe it was that specific rhythm, specific key signature, time signature, whatever customization option you were focused on. You can show how students improved in that with that over time. And if you're using a unit, you can make slight changes to the template, copy it, and then edit it, and make slight changes that then are reflected as a student progresses and learns new skills, and that's tracked. Right? So tracking the progress goes a long way. And building these units or assignments is a great way to, again, to build that culture of sight reading and make sure that everything is working exactly the way you were hoping, and that you can show and demonstrate that progress for students while staying focused on the curriculum that matters. If you have questions, we are here to help. We try to include this slide in all our webinars. If something's not going right with SmartMusic, by all means, let us know. We have a help center. You can find more webinars on our YouTube channel, and Facebook is another great opportunity to get in touch. I see we have a couple questions in the chat already, but we are now, we're kind of finishing up. So if you guys have other questions, send them to me in the chat and we'll kind of go over them and take a look. Again, we kind of covered everything you can do with the sight reading builder. We talked about how to build unlimited exercises by generating them, how to use the predefined levels, all the many customization options, how to save your outline, how to download and print from a notation program like Finale, some in-class activities like Rhythm of the Day, transforming something into a rhythm-only exercise, how to assign it and build a unit, and kind of how to combine everything to make students feel really comfortable. When they start to feel comfortable, the grade starts to matter a little bit less, and so it becomes more about making the progress. I saw questions in the chat, so let's start there. Okay, making one assignment for different instruments and multiple ensembles. So what I would recommend there is either if you have a specific set of different instruments that you want to build more than once, you could build a custom assignment, a custom ensemble in the sight reading builder. And that way you'd have access to that one set of instruments over and over and over again. If you need different ensembles, like in different classes, you just build a different outline. So, changing the instruments in the sight reading builder doesn't change the rest of your parameters. So you could save it multiple times without needing to go through the process of making all those customizations again. Can you play duets? Yes. So that would be another like custom ensemble thing. And then you'd go into that setting where where I showed you that you can have more than one independent line, and so the duets will line up. Here, I'll pull this up for you guys. So this is how we build is that what I want? So here's how we build a custom ensemble. So we go to custom ensemble, right? We're adding as many staves as we want. We click on it here. We'll choose another one. So if we wanted to choose some more esoteric brass instruments, we could do that. It automatically sets up the transposition for us. This is the most unusual brass choir of all time. And so if I had a very specific set of instruments I wanted to work with, I could set it up this way and go from there. And I can add the staves above or below and go from there. Right. Didn't assign the rest of these, so it's going to be a little confused about what exactly I wanted in these other staves. But I could set this up with a custom ensemble type, and that would be a great way to build a duet or an unusual ensemble. Are you able to delete old templates? Yes, you are. So let's take a look at that. Certainly deleting old assignment templates is easy. You'll do that from the Units tab. And you'll be able to delete those. But I can also delete others that I've saved. So in the Content Manager here, which again I get to with the navigation icon, if I go to the Content Manager, right, I can pull up the sight reading string orchestra thing that I've just built today right in front of you, and I can delete it or assign it or edit it. And so the Content Manager will help. It'll show you your sight reading scores with this icon. So these are the outlines you build based on the parameters or customizations you make within the sight reading builder. And then while we're talking about it, you can also go back to Units. And if I wanted to delete something, for example, from this sight reading unit I just built, I can remove it from the unit, or I can just trash the template altogether and get rid of it. And so those are two separate items. There's deleting the outline, the customizations I made in the sight reading builder, and then separate from that would be deleting this template I built, where with the rubric and kind of those how long I want the students to review parameters. So those live in two separate places. So if I maybe was unhappy with the rubric, I could edit or delete this without losing those customization options from the sight reading builder as well. Okay. Not been able to fit a template projected on my board other than printing. Some options. The biggest band template can get pretty big. So one option would be, I don't know how important it is to have like trombone 1, trombone 2 parts, but in the ensembles, we've got a beginning band template that fits a little bit smoother onto a single screen because it doesn't have more than one part per instrument, for example. So that's one option. Long exercises with the full score on the board can be tough. There's not a lot of real estate. So that might be a chance to try the rhythmic only thing as well, where we're choosing one instrument. We could also build a custom ensemble type to get fewer systems in there with one for each transposition, and would be another option, right? So then clarinets and tenor saxes would be reading the same music, which creates, of course, other issues. But that's another option if we're really strapped for the real estate. Can you create sight reading exercises for piano? Yes, you can. So we'll go back to the score setup here. Solo instruments, keyboards, piano. We've got guitars, we've got percussion, voice. I'm a band person, so I always default to the band stuff. But right, we could build something just for soprano voice. We have choir and chamber ensembles as well. So, so on piano, SmartMusic is not going to be able to detect the errors because it's going to struggle with the polyphonic assessment more than one note at a time. But it'll generate the exercises for you to play. Well, thank you guys so much for making it out tonight to hear about the sight reading builder. Again, if you have any questions, let me know in the chat. Hopefully you guys are as excited about the kind of possibilities and potential for this tool as we are. I've already seen teachers get started with it and be real excited about the possibilities. Love to hear how you're using it. Let us know, social media, or send us a note, or come visit us at your state MEA conference. We'd love to say hi, hear about how you're using it. If you're interested in getting started, smartmusic.com is a great way to get started. You can get in touch and we'll build you an account and we can set you up a free trial as well. This is something that you haven't gotten started with yet that you're interested in trying. So thank you all again so much for coming. Appreciate it.